Diarmuid Hester helped me get something published for the first time in 20 years. He'd heard me read at a conference in Berkeley. Afterwards, he asked me if he could use the paper I had read in an issue of Textual Practice. He was a guest editor for the issue on new narrative writers, one of which I am, though I seldom remember having no one in my present life to remind me. The issue came out after a couple of years, and I was given a link I could send to up to 50 people. It's called a journal, but we are alone in our efforts. I had thought my paper would be together with other contributing writers, something to look through like a paper magazine. It's not like that. I can read the introduction to this special issue without paying, but I have had difficulty finding it again in searches. In it, certain writers are spoken of as doing groundbreaking or seminal work that people should read to understand the importance of this writing community and what they should take from it. All I know is this: if you identify a few important writers, that's a clear sign that there's nothing left for most of the people who had constructed this writing community. A few people are more important now than all those writers who are interacting spread throughout the Bay Area. A few writers are more important than the excitement of writers gathered for some event or other, different ones showing up each time. A few people are more important than the whole community to the people who write about it, probably because that's how they've been taught to write about social movements of all kinds. I don't mean to criticize the other papers. I didn't read them. I'd have to pay $45 to read one article or $231 for the issue that I contributed to. I'm not affiliated with any prestigious institution through which I could get this writing for free. It's awful to see how many views my paper got. It wasn't possible in the past to put a number to someone's worth in this way. It tells me that my efforts are worth less than the most inane posting I can find on YouTube. I made an impression at the conference, maybe greater than any other presenter there. The praise I received after reading what I had brought was physically painful. The energy from this sudden recognition entered my body like a milder version of being electrocuted, and I had to avoid other people for a while to recover. I remember lying on a bed, waiting for the excess energy to finally leave my body. I don't like an imbalance of attention, even when it favors me, but, and this may be arrogant, I always felt I could come up with models for looking at the world that wouldn't occur to anyone else. Of course, it would never occur to anyone else to search for these models or look for them in what I write. They already know how to write. There were people who helped me back during the heyday of the San Francisco Bay Area writing community, like Bob Gluck. There were people who did more work and had more influence. But that doesn't justify writing articles now as if a few central people make every social event happen, a strategy I see people adopting without question. A small number of central characters was not how the community was built. If that were the case, it couldn't have spread out. It couldn't have provided venues people could walk into around the city. It would have been a few friends sharing personal experiences, and whatever advantage they had within their private interactions, it would have been more typical, and now it's likely to be written about as if it were. Central figures make the past easy to comprehend and remember. Perhaps more importantly, they help us retain the false impression that our brains are capable of accurately assessing and reporting about complex social activity. We can report about one or a few people easily. New narrative writers were no better at writing than they could become without a community, especially if they were supported in other ways. At times, the influence of the San Francisco Bay Area writing community on my writing made it worse. Sitting here, I feel very human in my isolation. Maybe a lot of people feel more human when alone. I don't feel adequately human when I go among others who push me into a more precarious sense of who I am. I don't know who I am at those times. Other people control my appearance, if not the entirety of who I can become. Many people probably suffer from that transformation, from feeling simply human when alone with the same abilities as anyone else, to feeling all too different and measured by poor judgment while among other people. I recently walked toward a friend's house at night. I heard laughter inside, people enjoying one another's company. It frightened me. I stood in the dark, afraid to approach this friend's door. I stood while thinking, I am the person who is afraid of people. I have always felt that our evolution will make us progressively different from one another, and that each person will then be more alone while among other people. But these people who were laughing didn't feel that. They may have regressed humorously to where they were less capable of differing from one another, maybe through drinking or drunk on one another's company. At the conference, I was satisfied that I had done my work, having delivered a talk and reading that impressed. I hadn't expected to make much of an impression. I wasn't prepared to be well received and had no plan for how I would behave if I were. I came to realize more recently that my favorable reception at the New Narrative Conference at UC Berkeley merely set up the opportunity to make influential friends or renew old friendships with other writers whose work has gained more attention than mine. I would probably have to praise one or a few people as especially important to what had taken place back then to join the celebration and make it known that I will back the cause with my support for the most popular writers. But so many people came and went back then, more people than any central figure's comparatively small life could encompass. That's an important aspect of living in a complex society. The obsession with saying that this one person or these few friends made everything happen will give you characters for a story, but the real value of some social movement made up of a lot of people, many who are strangers to one another, will be lost in this way to raise a few people above all the rest. Even if they deserve greater attention, I would rather hear about countless people working on writing and free to come and go, and even remain in the margins of the writing community without being denied a future as a writer who others take seriously. I could help to create this community like I did back then. It's not normal for humans to work toward a better society for long. This effort will always transform into a strategized past with a small number of important people. What was working will soon be lost and forgotten. The writing community wasn't everything I needed, or I would have stayed in San Francisco. But even now it offers a way to think about what's possible that I haven't found anywhere else. It could have been better in many ways. I had days when I thought I had to get away from writers who were too concerned with pleasing their friends who were too easy to please. It was less about sitting down and writing, which is solitary anyway, than about finding a way to feel less utterly alone. The streets at night when I visited San Francisco during my stay at the conference reminded me of how lonely I often was in San Francisco. I felt abandoned by the whole world walking there at night. I know that the YouTube algorithm isn't smart enough to judge what I've been posting. I doubt the person who designed it is. It is time for me to face that I can't contribute much to society. Maybe I never had much to say anyway, like so many writers who are unaware of their lack of talent. For me to continue writing is like continuing to call someone who stopped returning my calls long ago. They got on with their life, and their new life doesn't include me. I should stop trying to communicate with people who like their own stories better than any I come up with. Why begrudge them that? I feel such anger and resentment when I see so many stories I'm disappointed by raised up as examples of what's good. I should just accept that I can't do what they do. It's time for me to stop writing.